Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading from the first book of Daniella, Uncultured. We are at JRTC, which is Joint Readiness Training Center in the Bog in Louisiana, doing war games to prepare to deploy to Afghanistan. The days passed in pure monotony, all of us going through the motions of our jobs, waking up from a dead sleep to respond to downed aircraft drills and sudden missions. A small reminder of what the long 9 months of our upcoming deployment would be. I couldn't help but see the similarity with the drills of my youth, when we'd be awakened in the middle of the night and timed on how long it took us to grab our flea bags and line up in formation. I came to find that walking into a bright pink office covered with the face of a strange Japanese kitty made me smile, and I saw others smile too. So I guess Mr. Simmons had been right about that softening effect. I forgot to mention this chapter is called I'm the Bitch. And because I was such the ice queen, my soldiers covered my office in Hello Kitty duct tape. One morning, another warrant officer came to my office, an Apache gunship pilot attached to us from another battalion. Striding into my office with the swagger common to attack pilots, he stopped short, seeing the bright flash of pink and kitty. Well, well, what have we here? He said, speaking out of the side of his mouth with an accent so strong I could only guess he was from Louisiana and backcountry, probably from nearby. A pretty little pink missy in a pretty little pink office with a pretty little pink kitty. How perfectly lovely. My eyebrows and my hackles raised. I wanted to punch him. Excuse me, Mr. Boucher, is it... I swiveled around, trying to temper the harshness in my voice when I saw his rank, Chief Warrant Officer 3. Lieutenants were always warned not to get into a battle of wills with a Chief Warrant Officer 3 or higher. But I was about to be a captain, and I was more than a little tired of putting up with harassment, all the time and everywhere. I knew his comment wasn't that bad, compared with hundreds of others I'd heard over the last 4 years. But I was tired, and I had lost all my patience. The chapter title comes from, in the military, we get told very often, in my case it was in basic training, that women in the Army are either a bitch, a slut, or a dyke. That's ma'am to you, I snapped, my voice steely and hard. I'm gonna need you to turn right around and examine how inappropriate that was while you were on your way out of my office, Mr. Boucher. Oh, come on, ma'am, he said. I didn't know who you were. I'm just here for my brief, and I'm sure that you and I can get along. I'm sure we can too, I said, an unsincere honey coating my voice. But right now, you'll need to walk away, and we'll try again when you have a little more respect. Oh, and in the future, the color of someone's office, anyone's office, does not give you the right to say whatever you want to them. With that, I swiveled my chair back around, making it clear there was no room for argument. After a moment or two of shock, he slinked out, and I could tell by the sound of his footsteps that his swagger was gone. I sank my head to the desk, my heart beating rapidly. I felt like an animal, prey, the way a deer shakes with adrenaline after escaping a predator. When I calmed down, I stood up and decided to find Mr. Apollo Simmons, my closest colleague, and tell him what had just happened. I thought he'd be proud of how I handled it, and as a Chief Warrant Officer 3 himself, he could tell me if I'd overstepped. I came face to face with Lieutenant Colonel Halter, mere inches outside my door. The man we called the Ninja, for a reason. He'd heard the whole exchange. I swallowed hard as he motioned me to follow him. This is my boss and the commander of the whole unit. I have a story to tell you, Daniella, he said, expressionless as always, his voice steady as we walked down the hall to his office. Was I in trouble or not? There was no way to tell. When I was a young lieutenant, we deployed to Iraq, and I was made the unit intelligence officer because, well, there really was no one else to do the job. He told me all this as we walked down the hall together, like this was some casual conversation between colleagues on the way to the office. I had no idea what he was getting at. I had a sergeant who worked for me, like your staff sergeant does for you. She was super squared away, and she taught me a lot about intel work. One night, she came banging on my door long after I'd been asleep. She said, "Sir, I've got to tell you what happened before you hear it from someone else." I didn't know what to expect. My mind was racing. Then she told me one of the battle captains had been harassing her, consistently on the night shift. Finally, he'd made one comment too many, and she snapped. She was coming to me because she was sure she'd be court-martialed for the disrespect toward an officer, but she wanted me to understand. She told me, "Sir, I'm going to tell you what I told the captain." He became more animated than I'd ever seen him. He continued, and then, not missing a beat, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "There are two types of women in the Army, bitches and sluts. Sir, I'm the bitch." He raised both of his thumbs to point to his own chest. Then, after a smirk and no further explanation, he turned and walked away. I stood, stunned, wondering what had just happened. Second Lieutenant Stephen Wilson, my right-hand lieutenant and mentee, a late witness to part of the exchange, was equally puzzled, as I could see from his confused shrug. Mr. Simmons walked up, and I burst out, "Apollo, I think Colonel Halter just called me a bitch. And I think it was a compliment." As I replayed the strange encounter inwardly, I glowed. It had taken me 4 grueling years, but I felt like I'd finally arrived. Lieutenant Colonel Halter, a leader I looked up to, respected me, and maybe everybody else did too. Maybe, just maybe, I was no longer seen as a threat or a liability. Maybe this time I wouldn't have to be worried about being the slut or the dyke. I'd finally grasped the coveted title that Army women must strive for. I was officially a stone-cold bitch. Back home, our sergeant major tasked me to give a pre-deployment brief to about 15 women, all privates and lieutenants, like Private First Class Parker on my own team, who were headed into their first deployment. He didn't tell me what to say, but he knew I'd been in that situation less than 2 years before. He wanted me to communicate to them, somehow, what to expect as a woman in that environment. "We're 5% of the population over there," I told them. "It's hard, stressful, emotionally draining, and often scary to be a woman on the sand. But you're not alone, and if anyone so much as hints at something to you that makes you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, you come to me. I've been in this unit for 4 years now, and nobody fucks with me." I'd hoped that my Queen Elsa status, the ultimate ice queen, would protect me, and that it could carry over to the only girl who worked for me, too. I caught Private Parker's eye as I closed my presentation, and was certain she heard my silent message. I got you. You get signed copies of Uncultured attached here, or listen to me read it to you anywhere you get your audiobooks.